During this year, our class was set a preliminary task. This was used to identify what areas of filming we needed to improve and what areas we were confident with. The next task was our opening sequence. My film is called 31 Hours. The basic narrative of my film is surrounded by one character, Darren McLean. McLean is a successful businessman involved in many companies around the world. On an ordinary day, McLean receives a letter in the post, but this is not an ordinary letter containing his business profit for the month. This letter is blackmail. The letter will read, "You have 5 hours left," and the rest of the film will continuously show the countdown to the 31st hour where a huge twist will be revealed about Darren's so-called business. The genre of my film is a crime thriller. I was able to produce this opening sequence due to the democratisation of the film industry. Democratisation of the film industry allows anyone to make a film. This is due to the accessibility of hardware. For example, you can buy a camera at any electrical shop, and the software is widely available for a cheap price or even free. Democratisation can be seen as a revolution for independent filmmakers and has allowed me to produce my opening sequence. I had to plan, film and edit for this task, which was to be 2 to 3 minutes long. I found that I came across a lot of technological convergence being used when creating my production. As I have used an array of technologies that have come together to form a similar task and to create my opening sequence. Digitalisation is another factor that has also enabled me to produce this task. Many small independent filmmakers can use YouTube or Vimeo to attract audiences to their short films. This creates a new media platform for low-budget films and gives the producer a chance of showcasing talent. I used a variety of technologies when planning, filming and editing my product, such as a range of hardware. I used a Nikon D5000 camera, a tripod and an ordinary stills camera when filming and planning my task. The reason for this choice of a personal camera rather than the camera provided for by the school was that it was far more accessible. I also found that the Nikon had technically advanced capabilities such as a pop-up flash, which enhanced the lighting, creating a better shot. I also used the Nikon D5000 due to the clarity of product it produced. I recorded my film at 1280x720p at 24 frames per second. This enabled my product to have a high viewing quality. The Nikon D5000 has a built-in microphone rather than an external input. I found that the microphone wasn't that effective when I played my footage back, as the dialogue recorded was barely noticeable. For this reason, I refilmed part of my product and the dialogue could be heard. The tripod I used was a Manfrotto tripod. This enabled me to position the camera in a suitable place for filming and allowed me to produce steady, clear footage. The tripod enabled me to pan and tilt successfully and produce a smooth effect on the footage. A tripod had to be used when filming my product, simply to create a secure base for the camera to rest on. If I opted not to use a tripod, the finished filming would result in looking shaky and unsteady. I also used an ordinary stills camera to develop step-by-step pictures of what my footage aimed to look like. This helped me when creating a storyboard in the planning stages and allowed me to visualise what scene would go where. This created a role play of my opening sequence before it was shot and gave me a clearer idea on what I wanted to achieve from this task. Once my opening sequence was filmed and I was sure I had all the necessary footage, I started to use the school's Apple iMacs to decipher what parts of the footage was actually useful. In the meantime, I started to create titles for my opening sequence. To do this, I used software called LiveType. This is a title making program which allows you to add effects and font onto text to create a rolling title. I needed to make 4 titles for my opening sequence, one for the production company, the distribution company, the actual title of my film, which is called 31 Hours, and a character title. Not using this software before made it slightly more difficult in creating the titles. However, all 4 titles, once completed, fitted in well with my opening sequence. I frequently went onto LiveType during media lessons to try and work out how to use the program. To help me, I watched YouTube videos on how to create effects and choose fonts and many other things. This again encapsulates the whole concept of technological convergence, as I was able to integrate various forms of software into the project. After I had the basic idea of how to produce a title, I then started to download my own fonts. The reason for this choice of my own fonts was that many on LiveType did not coincide with my genre. For example, I couldn't have a cartoon themed font when trying to portray a crime thriller. To retrieve my own fonts, I used a website called dafont.com. This website has a variety of different fonts to choose from, and I found the choices much more fitting to my product. For my production company title, I wanted a typewriter font and a typewriter effect. The font I used was from dafont.com and is also called Typewriter. Once I had downloaded and installed the font, I started to choose effects and shadows for the text. The effect I chose is called AA Typewriter, which is originally from LiveType. Due to my company name being Youngblood Productions, I wanted a red glow to appear from behind each letter when it came up on the screen. To achieve this, I had to change the glow setting on LiveType to the shade of red I wanted and apply it to my text. I had the effect and the text, but now I wanted a blood splatter to appear. To do this, I couldn't use LiveType, so I had to import my title onto Final Cut, which is also the editing software used to edit my opening sequence. I used Google to find a blood splatter image and copied it into Final Cut, where I placed it over the text, just after the titles had started, to create the effect that the blood had splattered onto the screen. When I started to play my title, it would not show, so I used a background from Final Cut called Colour Solid in white to enable the title to play. When making my other titles, I used dafont.com for the fonts. The fonts chosen were Ellen and Cold Night for alligators. I used the effect of shudder and fade out to create an eerie atmosphere, and also used the red glow for the main title. Final Cut was another piece of software that I used when producing the opening sequence. This program enabled me to cut, insert, add effects to my footage. I used a lot of fade in and fade out for the start and end of my sequence, with cross dissolves to resolve minor problems with footage. I also tried to overlay 2 clips, but I decided it didn't give the effect I wanted. I imported sound from YouTube to use as a backing track to my opening sequence. Finding the music that would suit my genre was difficult, but once I found it, I had to edit the clip to the length I wanted it to be. I also slowed the music down and made the duration longer. When dialogue was introduced, I had to decrease the sound level of the music to increase the volume of the dialogue. The internet was a great source of information for me during the planning and research stages of the task. I frequently use YouTube to help with the research of how to use certain tools on Final Cut and LiveType. When planning my task, I often used Pete's Media Blog, which is a blog designed for A-level media students set up by an examiner. This helped me to identify what I needed to do to produce the best product I could for this task. Freesound is another website I found useful, as you could find any type of sound and use it without infringing copyright laws. This was useful for me because I couldn't find any music at the time on YouTube, in which you didn't have to ask permission to use. However, the school computers would not access the website, therefore I would have to download the sound from Freesound onto a memory stick and import it as an MP3 into the school. For this reason, I decided to use YouTube, as it was far quicker to find a piece rather than searching a website with endless choices. In the end, I found the track I wanted and asked the channel owner for permission to use it in my opening sequence. I had noticed on the comments that the owner had frequently said yes to any queries of using his material. The music I use is a generic suspense composition. I have this music running through the titles, as I thought my continuity would appear better if I did this, rather than having alternative sound to back the titles individually. For example, DreamWorks titles have a chime sound to support the dreamlike quality. Post-production was the hardest part of the task for me. I found it difficult to get a grip on how to use Final Cut Express, even though videos on YouTube and notes from websites developed my knowledge for basic and some slightly more complex skills. I still didn't have the effect I wanted on the film, as I didn't know how to achieve it. I found LiveType self-explanatory, but Final Cut was slightly more complex to use. However, I have produced an opening sequence that fits the brief, all due to the various technologies I have been accessing throughout the task. Digitalisation is evident throughout the process of the opening sequence, as everything I used to help me was digital, be it a computer or a camera. So to sum up, I have learnt various micro skills such as how to use hardware, such as cameras, how to use software, such as Final Cut and LiveType. I have also learnt about macro concepts such as democratisation and technological convergence. It is worth stating that these macro concepts are radically altering the film industry. However, despite the availability and accessibility of all of these products to make an engaging film, it is still vital you follow established filmmaking techniques such as match on action, shot reverse shot, ensuring the quality is good and the narrative is suitable. The technologies available to me all helped me to achieve the opening sequence I was aiming for, and here is the finished product.
faces. Who are these people?